Hi there, friend. I want to talk to you today about something close to my heart, relationships. We all want healthy and meaningful connections, but let's be honest, it's not always easy. Whether it's family, friendships, or romantic relationships, building those strong, God-centered bonds takes work. But here's the good news. With the right foundation, it's entirely possible. Before we dive in, let's start with this simple yet powerful truth. You can't have healthy relationships with others if you don't first have a healthy relationship with yourself. And let me tell you, this idea is not selfish or self-centered, it's biblical. Why self-love isn't selfish. Let's clear something up. A lot of us grew up thinking that putting ourselves first is wrong. Maybe you were taught to give until there's nothing left. But let me ask you this, how can you pour into someone else's life when your own cup is empty? The Bible tells us in Matthew 22:39, love your neighbor as yourself. Did you catch that? As yourself. That means you're supposed to love and value yourself first. You are God's creation, fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139:14. Treating yourself with love and respect isn't just a good idea, it's obedience to God, building self-worth. So, how do we start loving ourselves in a healthy, biblical way? Here are 3 practical steps you can start today. Speak life over yourself. Stop letting negative self-talk run the show. Replace thoughts like, I'm not good enough, with truths from God's word. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. Set boundaries. Listen to me carefully. Setting boundaries doesn't make you mean or unloving. It protects your peace and allows you to give your best to others. Invest in self-care. Now, I don't just mean bubble baths or spa days, although those are great. I'm talking about caring for your mind, body, and spirit. Pray, journal, exercise, do things that bring you joy. How self-worth affects your relationships. When you know your value, something amazing happens. You stop settling. You stop putting up with toxic behavior because you recognize you deserve better. And let me tell you, people will treat you the way you teach them to treat you. Have you ever seen someone who's always bending over backward for others, but no one seems to appreciate them? That's not love. That's imbalance. God didn't create you to be a doormat. Ephesians 2:10 says, you are his masterpiece. That means you are worthy of respect, kindness, and love. Story time, a personal struggle. Can I share something personal? For years, I struggled with low self-esteem. I grew up in a home where criticism was common, and I carried that hurt into adulthood. I let people walk all over me because I thought that's what I deserved. But one day, God spoke to my heart. He reminded me that I'm his child. Slowly, I began to see myself through his eyes. And as I did, I noticed a shift in my relationships. The people who didn't respect me either changed or faded out of my life. And that's okay. It made room for healthier connections. If you're feeling stuck in toxic relationships or struggling to love yourself, I want you to know this. You're not alone and you're not beyond God's help. Start small. Begin each day by thanking God for who he made you to be. Speak affirmations rooted in Scripture over your life. Trust me, as you begin to value yourself, you'll start to attract people who do the same. Remember, the foundation of every healthy relationship is the one you have with yourself and with God. So let's make that foundation strong. In the next chapter, we'll talk about identifying and breaking free from toxic patterns that may be holding you back. Thanks for joining me today. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Breaking free from toxic patterns. If you're here, it means you're ready to keep building healthier, more meaningful relationships. That takes courage, and I want to acknowledge how brave you are for taking this step. In our last chapter, we talked about loving yourself first and laying a strong foundation for healthy relationships. But today, we're diving into something deeper, breaking free from toxic patterns. Let's face it, sometimes the biggest obstacle to attracting good relationships is the baggage we carry from the past. Whether it's unhealthy habits, negative self-beliefs, or even toxic people, these patterns can hold us back from the joy and connection God intends for us. Recognizing toxic patterns. The first step to breaking free is recognizing the problem. Let me ask you, have you ever found yourself in the same kind of unhealthy relationship over and over again? Maybe it's with friends who always take and never give, or partners who leave you feeling unworthy. Here's the hard truth. Toxic patterns don't just happen, they're learned. Often, they stem from unresolved wounds or beliefs we've picked up along the way. For example, if you grew up feeling unworthy of love, you might unconsciously seek out people who reinforce that belief. Or if conflict was handled poorly in your family, you might avoid hard conversations, even when they're necessary. The good news is you don't have to stay stuck in these cycles. Identifying the source of toxicity. Let's get practical. Here are 3 ways to identify the toxic patterns in your life. Reflect on your relationships. Think about your closest connections. Are they life-giving or draining? Do you feel valued and respected, or are you constantly walking on eggshells? Write down any patterns you notice. Examine your role. This one's tough, but it's essential. Ask yourself, what behaviors am I bringing to the table? Am I setting healthy boundaries, or am I enabling toxic behavior? Pray for clarity. Sometimes, we're too close to the situation to see it clearly. Ask God to open your eyes to the areas where change is needed. James 1:5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. He will guide you." Letting go of toxic people. Now let's talk about one of the hardest parts of this process. Letting go of toxic people. I know what you're thinking, but aren't Christians supposed to forgive and love everyone? Absolutely. Forgiveness is a command, not an option. But forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to continue hurting you. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Guarding your heart means protecting your peace and your relationship with God. Sometimes that means creating distance from people who consistently harm you. How to let go. Here's how you can begin to let go in a healthy, God-honoring way. Set clear boundaries. Let the person know what behavior is unacceptable and what will happen if it continues. Remember, boundaries are not about punishment. They're about protection. Release them to God. Pray for the person, but also pray for the strength to let go. Trust that God will work in their life and yours. Fill the void with positive influences. As you distance yourself from toxic relationships, seek out connections that uplift and encourage you. Join a Bible study group, volunteer, or reconnect with supportive friends. A turning point. Can I share another personal story? There was a time in my life when I had a close friend who was constantly critical. No matter what I did, it was never good enough. I held on to that relationship for years, thinking I needed to be the bigger person. But the truth is, I was allowing her words to chip away at my self-esteem. One day, I felt God whisper to my heart, "Why are you letting someone else's opinion define you?" That was my wake-up call. I set boundaries and created space in that relationship. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And you know what? God filled that void with people who spoke life and encouragement into me. If you're in a toxic relationship right now, I want you to know this: you're not alone and you're not powerless. You have the strength through Christ to break free. It won't be easy and it might take time, but the peace and freedom on the other side are worth it. Remember, letting go isn't about giving up on someone. It's about making room for God to work in their life and yours. In the next chapter, we'll discuss how to cultivate the kind of character that attracts healthy, meaningful relationships. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Cultivating the character to attract healthy relationships. I'm so proud of you for continuing this journey with me. By now, you've started building a strong foundation of self-love and taken steps to recognize and break free from toxic patterns. But there's something else we need to talk about: cultivating the kind of character that attracts healthy, meaningful relationships. The truth is, attracts like. If you want relationships that are loving, kind, and respectful, you need to embody those qualities yourself. So today, we're going to talk about how to grow into the person God created you to be, not only for your relationships, but for His purpose in your life. Becoming the best version of yourself. Let's start with this question. Are you the kind of person you would want to be friends with? It's a tough one, isn't it? But don't worry, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to encourage you. God has an incredible plan for your life, and part of that plan is shaping you into someone who reflects His love and grace. Colossians 3:12 says, "Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." These are the qualities that not only honor God, but also attract people who will uplift and support you. Building Christ-like character. Here are 5 ways to start becoming the best version of yourself today. Practice gratitude. Gratitude changes your perspective. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, it's easier to radiate joy and positivity. Keep a gratitude journal and write down 3 things you're thankful for every day. Develop emotional intelligence. Healthy relationships require emotional maturity. Learn to manage your emotions and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Proverbs 15:1 reminds us, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Be quick to forgive. Holding on to grudges only weighs you down. As God forgave you, not because the other person deserves it, but because it sets you free. Serve others. Jesus said in Mark 10:45 that He came not to be served, but to serve. When you make service a part of your life, it builds humility and strengthens your relationships. Commit to growth. None of us are perfect, but we can all strive to grow. Read books, seek mentorship, and most importantly, spend time in God's Word. Let Him shape you into the person He created you to be. Attracting what you give. Here's a powerful truth. What you put out into the world is often what you get back. If you're constantly negative or critical, you're more likely to attract people with the same energy. But when you exude kindness, joy, and love, you draw people who reflect those qualities. Think of it like planting seeds. Galatians 6:7 says, "A man reaps what he sows." If you want a harvest of healthy relationships, you need to plant seeds of goodness, patience, and understanding. Learning to sow good seeds. Let me share a moment from my own life. There was a time when I was quick to judge and slow to listen. I didn't realize it, but my attitude was pushing people away. One day, a friend pulled me aside and said, "Joyce, I love you, but sometimes it's hard to talk to you because you don't really listen." That hurt, but it was the wake-up call I needed. From that day on, I made a conscious effort to be a better listener and to speak words of encouragement instead of criticism. And you know what? I noticed a shift in my relationships. The more grace I gave, the more grace I received. What healthy relationships look like. Now let's get specific. What does a healthy relationship actually look like? Here are some key markers. Mutual respect. Healthy relationships are built on a foundation of respect. You feel valued for who you are, not just for what you can do for someone else. Open communication. You can express your thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or retaliation. Shared values. While it's okay to have differences, having core values in common, like faith, honesty, and kindness, creates a strong bond. Encouragement and support. You celebrate each other's victories and offer a shoulder to lean on during tough times. Healthy boundaries. You honor each other's needs and limits, creating a space where both people can thrive. Here's what I want you to take away from today. You don't have to be perfect to attract healthy relationships, but you do need to be intentional. Start by asking God to help you grow in areas where you're struggling. He's not looking for perfection, He's looking for progress. And remember, as you cultivate Christ-like character, you'll naturally begin to attract the kind of relationships that reflect God's love and purpose for your life. Building and deepening connections. If you've made it this far in our series, you're serious about creating healthier, more meaningful relationships. That's incredible. And I want to remind you, you're on the right path. Whether you're looking to meet new people or strengthen existing relationships, this chapter is packed with practical, faith-based strategies that will help you build the kind of connections that last. Meeting new people with intention. Let's start with something that might feel a little uncomfortable: meeting new people. For some of us, this comes naturally, but for others, it's downright intimidating. Here's the truth. If you want healthy relationships, you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly." Building connections requires effort, and sometimes that means taking the first step. But don't worry, I've got some tips to make it easier. Here are 3 ways to meet new people and build authentic connections. Get involved in your community. Join a church group, volunteer at a local shelter, or attend a Bible study. Shared activities create natural opportunities to connect. Be curious and approachable. When you meet someone new, show genuine interest in their life. Ask open-ended questions like, "What brought you here?" or "What's something you're passionate about?" Don't fear rejection. Not every interaction will lead to a lifelong friendship, and that's okay. Remember, even Jesus didn't connect deeply with everyone he met. Focus on quality over quantity, deepening existing relationships. Now, let's talk about the people who are already in your life. Maybe you have a friend, spouse, or family member you want to grow closer to, but you're not sure how. Relationships thrive on intentionality. They don't just grow on autopilot. You have to nurture them. Think of your relationships like a garden. Without care, weeds like miscommunication or neglect can creep in. But with consistent effort, they can flourish, strengthening your bonds. Here are 4 ways to deepen your existing relationships. Practice active listening. When someone speaks, really listen. Put down your phone, maintain eye contact, and focus on their words. James 1:19 reminds us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Spend quality time together. It doesn't have to be elaborate. A walk in the park, a coffee date, or even a phone call can make a big difference. The key is being fully present. Express appreciation. Don't underestimate the power of a simple "thank you" or "I appreciate you." Ephesians 4:29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up." Be vulnerable. Share your struggles, hopes, and dreams. Vulnerability fosters trust and creates a deeper connection, navigating challenges together. Even the healthiest relationships face challenges. The key is learning how to navigate them with grace and understanding. Here's a truth we all need to remember. Conflict is not the enemy. It's how we handle conflict that determines whether it strengthens or weakens a relationship. Ephesians 4:2 says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." Let's unpack that. Resolving conflicts biblically. When conflict arises, here's how you can approach it in a way that honors God and strengthens your relationship. Pause and pray. Before you react, take a moment to pray for wisdom and patience. Ask God to guide your words and attitude. Use I statements. Instead of saying, "You always do this," try, "I feel hurt when this happens." This shifts the focus from blame to understanding. Seek to understand before being understood. Proverbs 18:13 says, "To answer before listening, that is folly and shame." Take the time to truly understand the other person's perspective before sharing your own. Forgive and move forward. Holding on to resentment only creates distance. Colossians 3:13 reminds us, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you." A moment of reconciliation. Let me share a personal story. Years ago, I had a disagreement with a close friend. We both felt hurt and misunderstood, and for weeks, the tension grew. One day, I felt God nudge me to reach out. I prayed for humility and picked up the phone. I started by saying, "I'm sorry for my part in this." That simple act of humility opened the door for an honest conversation. We both shared our feelings, forgave each other, and came out stronger on the other side. Friend, reconciliation is always possible when both parties are willing to let God lead. If you're longing for deeper connections, remember this: relationships are a gift from God, but they require work. Be intentional, be patient, and above all, let God's love guide every interaction. Building trust in relationships. Welcome back, my friend. We've come so far in our journey toward creating healthy, meaningful relationships. Today, we're tackling a big topic: trust. Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship. Whether it's with a spouse, a friend, a family member, or even in your relationship with God, trust determines how deeply we can connect with one another. But here's the thing: trust isn't built overnight. It's earned, nurtured, and sometimes rebuilt. What trust looks like. First, let's define trust. Trust is the confidence that someone will act in your best interest and that their words and actions align consistently over time. It's not just about honesty, it's also about reliability, integrity, and vulnerability. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." This verse reminds us that trust is rooted in faithfulness. Just as we trust God because He is steadfast and true, our earthly relationships should reflect that same dependability. Here are some signs of trust in a relationship. Honest communication. You can share your thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment. Consistency. The person shows up for you, both physically and emotionally, over time. Transparency. There are no hidden agendas or secrets. Accountability. Both people take responsibility for their actions. Mutual respect. Boundaries are honored and each person feels valued. Building trust, step by step. Now that we know what trust looks like, let's talk about how to build it. Whether you're starting a new relationship or strengthening an existing one, these steps will help you create a solid foundation. Building trust. Here's how you can build trust in your relationships. Keep your word. Matthew 5:37 says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no." Be a person of your word. If you say you'll do something, follow through. Be consistent. Trust is built over time through repeated actions. Small daily choices to show up and care matter more than grand gestures. Be vulnerable. Share your struggles and fears. Vulnerability invites intimacy and demonstrates that you trust the other person. Practice active listening. When someone speaks, listen with the intent to understand, not to respond. This shows you value their thoughts and feelings. Apologize when you're wrong. Owning your mistakes is a powerful way to build trust. A heartfelt apology can heal wounds and strengthen bonds. Rebuilding trust after it's broken. Sometimes trust is broken, whether by betrayal, dishonesty, or neglect. It's painful, and rebuilding trust takes time, effort, and humility, but it's not impossible. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." If you've experienced broken trust, know that God sees your pain and wants to guide you toward healing. Here's how you can begin to rebuild trust. Acknowledge the hurt. Both parties need to openly acknowledge what happened and how it impacted the relationship. Avoid minimizing or deflecting responsibility. Commit to transparency. Rebuilding trust requires openness. Be honest about your intentions and actions moving forward. Set clear boundaries. Boundaries create a safe space for trust to grow again. Be patient. Healing takes time. Don't rush the process. Allow trust to be rebuilt slowly and authentically. Seek God's guidance. Pray for wisdom, healing, and restoration. Philippians 4:6-7 reminds us that God's peace will guard our hearts and minds. A journey of forgiveness and rebuilding trust. Let me share a story of someone I counseled years ago. Sarah and her best friend Emily had been inseparable for years. But one day, Sarah discovered that Emily had shared something deeply personal with others. Sarah was heartbroken and felt betrayed. Emily apologized, but Sarah wasn't sure she could trust her again. They both agreed to take time apart and pray about the situation. Over time, Emily showed through her actions, being consistent, transparent, and honoring Sarah's boundaries, that she was truly sorry and committed to change. Today, their friendship is stronger than ever. It wasn't easy, but with God's help, they were able to rebuild what was broken. If you're struggling to trust someone, or if you've broken someone's trust, know this: with God, nothing is beyond repair. He is the ultimate restorer, and He can bring healing and redemption to any situation. Setting healthy boundaries in relationships. Boundaries are essential in creating and maintaining relationships that are not only meaningful, but also sustainable. They're about knowing where you end and another person begins. Without boundaries, relationships can become draining, confusing, and even harmful. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Setting boundaries is one way we guard our hearts while still loving others well. Let's explore how to do this biblically and practically. What are boundaries and why do they matter? First, let's define what boundaries are. Boundaries are the limits you set to protect your emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Think of them like a fence around your property. It defines what is yours and what isn't. But here's the key. Healthy boundaries aren't about building walls to keep people out. They're about creating guidelines for how you engage with others, ensuring that love and respect flow freely in both directions. Did you know the Bible is filled with examples of boundaries? Even Jesus set boundaries during his ministry. In Mark 1:35-38, Jesus withdrew to a solitary place to pray, showing the importance of setting time aside for spiritual renewal. In Matthew 12:46-50, he redefined his relationships by prioritizing those who followed God's will, emphasizing the need for spiritual boundaries. Boundaries are not selfish. They're essential for healthy relationships and a thriving life, identifying areas where you need boundaries. Now let's talk about where you might need boundaries. Think about your life for a moment. Are there areas where you feel overwhelmed, resentful, or taken advantage of? These are often signs that a boundary is missing or has been crossed. Here are some key areas where boundaries are crucial. Emotional boundaries. Protect your feelings and mental health by saying no to toxic behaviors and unnecessary drama. Time boundaries. Manage your schedule wisely, leaving room for rest and self-care. Physical boundaries. Respect your body and ensure others do too. Spiritual boundaries. Guard your relationship with God by prioritizing time for prayer, worship, and personal growth. Self-reflection. Exercise. The screen shifts to a calming graphic with journaling prompts. Here's an exercise to try. Take a few minutes today to reflect on these questions. Where do I feel most drained or stressed in my relationships? Are there areas of my life where I struggle to say no? What values or priorities do I need to protect with boundaries? Write down your thoughts and you'll begin to see where boundaries are needed. How to set healthy boundaries. Now that you've identified where you need boundaries, the next step is learning how to set them. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're not used to it. But remember, boundaries are an act of love for yourself and for others. Setting boundaries. Here are 5 steps to setting healthy boundaries. Pray for wisdom. Ask God to guide you in setting boundaries that honor Him and protect your well-being. James 1:5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all." Communicate clearly. Be direct and kind when expressing your boundaries. For example, instead of saying, "You never respect my time," try, "I need to leave by 7 p.m. tonight to stay on schedule." Start small. Begin with one area of your life and gradually expand. Setting too many boundaries at once can feel overwhelming. Be consistent. Once you've established a boundary, stick to it. Inconsistency sends mixed signals and undermines the purpose of the boundary. Expect resistance. Not everyone will understand or respect your boundaries initially. That's okay. Stand firm and trust that healthy relationships will adapt. Boundaries and love. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they're unloving, but the opposite is true. Setting boundaries allows you to love others more fully because it prevents resentment and burnout. And Corinthians 13:5 says, "Love does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs." Boundaries help us live out this kind of love by ensuring our actions come from a place of joy, not obligation. Learning to say no. Let me share a story about a woman named Rachel. Rachel was a devoted mom, wife, and church volunteer. She said yes to every request for help, but over time she felt exhausted and unappreciated. One day, Rachel prayed and realized she needed to set boundaries. She started by limiting her commitments to what aligned with her priorities: faith, family, and rest. At first, people were surprised, but over time, they respected her decisions. Rachel's relationships improved because she was no longer running on empty. She could give her best to the people and activities that mattered most. Friend, boundaries are not barriers. They're bridges to healthier, more fulfilling relationships. By setting boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're also creating space for love, respect, and mutual growth. The power of forgiveness in relationships. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Many think it's about excusing someone's wrong actions or pretending the hurt never happened. But true forgiveness goes much deeper. It's a decision to let go of bitterness and resentment, even when it feels impossible. Ephesians 4:32 reminds us, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about your freedom, your peace, and your relationship with God. Let's explore what forgiveness really means and how it can change your life, what forgiveness is and what it's not. First, let's clarify what forgiveness is and what it isn't. Forgiveness is not pretending the hurt didn't happen, saying that what someone did was okay, forgetting the offense entirely. Forgiveness is choosing to release the burden of anger and bitterness, trusting God to bring justice in His time, freeing yourself from the power of the offense over your life. Biblical perspective on forgiveness. Forgiveness is at the very heart of the gospel. In Matthew 6:14-15, Jesus says, "If you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." This verse reminds us that forgiveness is a two-way street. We forgive because we have been forgiven. It's a reflection of God's grace working through us. Why forgiveness is essential in relationships. Forgiveness is essential for healthy, meaningful relationships. Here's why. It releases bitterness. Carrying anger and resentment only harms you. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It restores peace. Forgiveness allows you to move forward, whether or not the relationship is fully reconciled. It strengthens your relationship with God. When you forgive others, you align yourself with God's heart and His desire for reconciliation. It models grace. When you forgive, you demonstrate the same grace that God has shown you. This can inspire others to seek Him. How to forgive when it feels impossible. Forgiving someone can feel impossible, especially when the pain runs deep. But remember, forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a choice. And it's a choice you don't have to make alone. God provides the strength and grace you need to forgive. Here are 5 steps to help you forgive. Acknowledge the hurt. Be honest about how the offense impacted you. Ignoring the pain won't make it go away. Pray for help. Ask God to soften your heart and guide you through the process of forgiveness. Matthew 19:26 reminds us that with God all things are possible. Choose to release. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the wrong. It means releasing your right to hold a grudge. Seek wisdom. If possible, have an honest conversation with the person who hurt you. Use I statements like, "I felt hurt when this happened," to express your feelings without accusing. Focus on your healing. Forgiveness is a journey. Give yourself time to process and heal. Surround yourself with supportive people who can encourage you. Rebuilding after forgiveness. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same. You can forgive someone without restoring the relationship, especially if trust has been broken or if the person is unwilling to change. However, if reconciliation is possible, forgiveness is the first step. Rebuilding a relationship takes time, patience, and mutual effort. Trust may not be restored immediately, but with God's help, it can be rebuilt over time. Forgiving the unforgivable. I'd like to share the story of a man named John. John grew up with an abusive father who left deep emotional scars. For years, he carried anger and resentment. He avoided his father and refused to speak to him. One day, during a sermon on forgiveness, John felt God urging him to let go of his bitterness. It wasn't easy. He prayed daily, asking God to help him forgive. Eventually, John reached out to his father. Through tears, he said, "I forgive you for everything." His father broke down and apologized for the pain he caused. Their relationship wasn't perfect after that, but forgiveness opened the door for healing and restoration. John's story is a powerful reminder that forgiveness doesn't just change others, it changes us. Friend, is there someone you need to forgive today? Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or even yourself. Whatever the situation, know that God is with you every step of the way. Remember, forgiveness is not about condoning the wrong. It's about freeing your heart to live in peace and joy. Nurturing relationships through intentionality. We've explored so many aspects of building healthy and meaningful relationships: communication, boundaries, forgiveness, but there's one more essential ingredient we need to discuss: intentionality. Healthy relationships don't just happen by chance. They require effort, time, and care. Think of a garden. If you want flowers to bloom, you have to plant seeds, water them, and tend to them regularly. Relationships work the same way. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." This sharpening doesn't happen passively. It's the result of intentional actions that bring growth, connection, and joy. Let's dive into how you can nurture your relationships with purpose. The importance of being present. The first step to nurturing any relationship is to be fully present. In today's world, it's easy to get distracted by work, technology, and the busyness of life. But meaningful connections are built when we give others our undivided attention. James 1:19 gives us a simple but powerful reminder: be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Listening attentively shows that you value the other person and strengthens the bond between you. Here are some ways to be more present in your relationships. Put away distractions. When you're spending time with someone, silence your phone, turn off the TV, and focus on the moment. Practice active listening. Instead of thinking about your response while someone is speaking, really hear what they're saying. Reflect back what you've heard to show you understand. Show empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and validate their feelings, even if you don't fully agree. Be intentional with your time. Schedule regular one-on-one time with the people you care about. It could be a coffee date, a phone call, or even a walk in the park. Building habits that strengthen relationships. Consistency is key to nurturing relationships. It's not just about grand gestures, it's about the small, everyday actions that show you care. Galatians 6:9 encourages us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." The same is true in relationships. When you consistently invest in others, the results are beautiful and lasting. Practical habits for connection. Here are some habits that can help strengthen your relationships. Express gratitude regularly. A simple "thank you" can go a long way. Let people know you appreciate them and what they bring to your life. Celebrate milestones. Whether it's a birthday, anniversary, or personal achievement, take time to celebrate with your loved ones. Pray together. Sharing prayer time deepens spiritual connections and invites God into your relationship. Check in often. Send a quick text or make a phone call to let someone know you're thinking of them. These small gestures keep relationships strong. Practice forgiveness and grace daily. Don't let small offenses build up. Address issues kindly and move forward in love. Showing love in ways that matter. Did you know that people receive love in different ways? Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch, are a helpful framework for understanding how to show love in ways that resonate with others. Romans 12:10 says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves." When we make the effort to understand and meet the needs of those we care about, we honor them and strengthen our connection. Take a moment to reflect. How do you feel most loved? How do the people in your life express and receive love? What's one small action you can take this week to show love in a meaningful way? The power of intentional love. Let me tell you about Sarah and Michael, a couple who had been married for 10 years. Over time, life became busy, and they started to feel disconnected. One day, Sarah decided to be intentional about rebuilding their connection. She started leaving little notes of encouragement for Michael, making time for weekly date nights, and asking about his day with genuine interest. Michael noticed the change and began reciprocating. Slowly but surely, their relationship grew stronger. They realized that the love they shared hadn't disappeared. It just needed to be nurtured. Friend, relationships are one of God's greatest gifts. But just like any gift, they require care and attention. When you invest in your relationships with intentionality, you're planting seeds that will bear fruit for years to come. Navigating conflict with grace. In every relationship, there will inevitably be moments of conflict. It's a natural part of life, whether it's with a spouse, family member, friend, or co-worker. But the key is not to avoid conflict. It's to handle it with grace, love, and understanding. Proverbs 15:1 tells us, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Conflict doesn't have to escalate into something destructive. With the right tools and mindset, conflict can actually bring you closer together. Let's talk about how to navigate those moments with grace and wisdom, understanding the role of conflict. First, let's reframe the way we think about conflict. Many people see conflict as something negative, something to be avoided at all costs. But the Bible tells us that conflict is not inherently bad. In fact, it can be an opportunity for growth, healing, and deeper understanding. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Conflict, when handled well, can refine us, strengthen our relationships, and teach us how to better love one another. Why conflict happens? Conflict often arises from misunderstandings, unmet expectations, differing values, or simple human imperfections. But it's important to remember that conflict is not the problem itself. It's how we handle it that makes the difference. So, when conflict arises, ask yourself, what is the root cause of this disagreement? Is it a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, or something deeper? Understanding the cause of the conflict is the first step in resolving it. The art of healthy communication. Communication is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, especially when it comes to conflict. Ephesians 4:29 tells us, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs." The words we use can either escalate a conflict or de-escalate it. Healthy communication involves listening without interrupting, speaking without accusation, and always aiming to understand the other person's perspective. Here are a few key tips to communicate more effectively during conflict. Listen actively. Focus on truly hearing the other person's point of view without forming your response while they speak. Reflect what they've said to ensure you understand. So, what I'm hearing is that you feel. Use I statements, not you statements. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," say, "I feel unheard when I'm talking." This takes the blame off the other person and opens up space for dialogue. Stay calm. Take deep breaths, and if needed, pause the conversation to regain composure. Reacting out of anger only fuels the conflict. Avoid shouting or name-calling. Harsh words or attacks never help resolve conflict. Aim to speak with kindness and respect, even when emotions are high. Seek common ground. Often, in the middle of a conflict, both parties are looking for the same thing: understanding, peace, and resolution. Find areas where you agree and build from there. The power of humility in conflict. One of the most important qualities to embody during conflict is humility. It's tempting to dig in our heels and insist we are right, but true reconciliation requires us to be humble enough to admit when we've made a mistake and to be willing to apologize. James 4:6 says, "God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble." Humility invites God into the situation, and it softens hearts, creating space for healing and understanding. Practical tips for practicing humility. Here's how to approach conflict with humility. Own your part. Even if you feel the other person is more at fault, take responsibility for your actions and how you may have contributed to the situation. A simple, "I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you earlier," can go a long way in diffusing tension. Be open to feedback. Be willing to hear the other person's perspective, even if it's uncomfortable. Listening with an open heart allows for growth and change. Be patient. Sometimes conflicts don't resolve immediately. Give it time. True healing takes patience and the willingness to continue to engage with love and understanding. Resolving conflict with forgiveness. As we've already discussed, forgiveness is a key element of resolving conflict. Without forgiveness, the conflict will linger, creating bitterness and division. But when you choose to forgive, you release the power of the offense over your heart. Colossians 3:13 tells us, "Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." Forgiveness does not mean condoning the other person's behavior, but it is a decision to release them from the debt you feel they owe you. Here are some steps to take when choosing to forgive during a conflict. Acknowledge the hurt. Recognize how the situation affected you emotionally. Denying the hurt will only make it harder to forgive. Decide to forgive. Forgiveness is a choice. It's not based on the other person's actions, but on your decision to release them from the burden of their wrongs. Pray for healing. Ask God to heal your heart and to help you see the other person through His eyes. Set boundaries if needed. Forgiveness does not mean allowing toxic behavior to continue. It's important to set boundaries that protect your peace while still extending grace. The power of forgiveness in conflict. I'd like to share a story about Mark and Lily. They'd been married for several years, and though they loved each other deeply, they often found themselves arguing about the same issues. One day, during a particularly heated argument, Mark realized how hurtful his words had been. He took a step back, apologized, and asked Lily for forgiveness. Lily, though hurt, chose to forgive him. The moment was humbling for both of them, but it was also healing. They were able to move forward stronger because of their willingness to face the conflict with humility, love, and forgiveness. Friend, conflict is hard. It's uncomfortable, and it often brings out the worst in us. But it can also be a powerful opportunity to grow, to show grace, and to deepen our relationships. Next time you find yourself in a conflict, remember that it's not about winning or being right. It's about understanding, forgiving, and loving. With God's help, you can navigate any conflict with grace and come out stronger on the other side. Cultivating lasting love and respect. We've come a long way in this journey of building healthy, meaningful relationships. We've talked about the importance of communication, intentionality, conflict resolution, and forgiveness. But now, let's talk about what keeps relationships strong over time, lasting love and respect. Corinthians 13:4-7 provides us with a beautiful picture of love, saying, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs." This is the kind of love we are called to cultivate in our relationships. It's patient, kind, humble, and it never gives up. But it's also built on respect, a crucial foundation for long-term connection. The foundation of respect. Respect is at the heart of all healthy relationships. Without it, relationships become strained and trust is broken. When you respect someone, you value them as a person, honoring their feelings, opinions, and boundaries. Philippians 2:3-4 reminds us, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others." Respect doesn't mean agreeing on everything. It means treating the other person with dignity and consideration, even when you disagree. Practical ways to show respect. Here are some practical ways to show respect in your relationships. Listen actively. Make sure to give your full attention when the other person is speaking. Show that you value their thoughts and feelings. Validate feelings. Even if you don't understand or agree with someone's feelings, acknowledge their right to feel that way. Empathy is a key part of respect. Honor boundaries. Everyone has personal boundaries. Whether it's emotional, physical, or mental, respecting boundaries is a non-negotiable way to show love and care. Give space when needed. Sometimes showing respect means giving the other person room to breathe, think, or process. Healthy space in relationships can strengthen bonds in the long run. The power of consistent affection and appreciation. Love isn't just about big gestures. It's in the small, consistent acts of kindness, affection, and appreciation. Showing your love every day in little ways reinforces the connection you share with someone. Proverbs 3:3-4 reminds us, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man." Consistent love and faithfulness create a lasting bond of respect. Practical ways to show affection and appreciation. Here are some simple but powerful ways to show affection and appreciation daily. Say "I love you" often. Never assume the other person knows how you feel. Express your love frequently and genuinely. Leave thoughtful notes or texts. A surprise text or note can brighten someone's day and remind them how much they mean to you. Physical touch. A hug, a kiss, holding hands. Physical touch can deepen emotional connection and show your love in a non-verbal way. Celebrate small wins, whether it's a work achievement, a personal goal, or just making it through a tough week. Celebrate each other's victories, big and small. Nurturing mutual growth and encouragement. Another key to cultivating lasting love and respect is encouraging each other's growth. Healthy relationships are not stagnant. They involve both individuals growing, learning, and improving together. Encouragement helps both people reach their fullest potential, both personally and within the relationship. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. When we support one another in our growth, we make each other stronger." Practical ways to encourage growth in relationships. Here are some ways you can encourage growth in your relationships. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Instead of focusing on what needs to be fixed, celebrate the progress that's been made. Acknowledge and appreciate each other's efforts. Pray for each other's growth. Encourage spiritual growth by praying for the other person's faith journey, career, and personal development. Challenge each other in a positive way. Push each other to step out of comfort zones, try new things, and grow in new directions. This can be through healthy challenges, like learning a new skill together or supporting each other through a tough season. We're keeping God at the center. Finally, a relationship built on God's love is one that will endure. When you put God at the center of your relationship, you invite His wisdom, peace, and grace into every aspect of it. God's love is unconditional, unchanging, and sacrificial, qualities that we can learn to reflect in our relationships. Matthew 7:24-25 says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock." So with God as your foundation, your relationship will stand strong, even through the storms. Practical ways to keep God at the center. Here are some practical steps to keep God at the center of your relationship. Pray together. Regular prayer as a couple or in your relationship can help strengthen your bond and keep you focused on God's will. Read the Bible together. Take time to study God's Word together. This can be a powerful way to grow spiritually and deepen your connection. Serve together. Serving others as a couple or within your relationship helps to build a sense of purpose and unity. Seek counsel when needed. When challenges arise, seek wisdom from God, and if necessary, from a trusted pastor or mentor. A relationship rooted in God's principles will always find a way to thrive. The power of a Christ-centered relationship. Let me share a story about a couple named Emily and David. They had been through many ups and downs in their marriage, but there was one thing that kept them strong: their shared faith. Whenever they faced challenges, they would pray together and seek God's guidance. One time they went through a particularly tough season where work pressures and family demands were pulling them in different directions, but they didn't give up on each other. They leaned into their faith, prayed for strength, and made a renewed commitment to prioritize their relationship with God and with each other. Today, Emily and David's marriage is stronger than ever because they built their relationship on a foundation of love, respect, and faith. They made God their cornerstone, and He has blessed their efforts. Friend, cultivating lasting love and respect in any relationship is a lifelong journey. It takes intentional effort, patience, and a commitment to grow together. But when you build your relationship on the solid foundation of God's love, you'll find that it not only survives but thrives. As you move forward in your relationships, remember that love is a choice, one you make daily. Respect is earned through kindness, humility, and empathy. And with God at the center, your relationships will be a reflection of His unconditional love for you and for others. Handling seasons of change in relationships. Life is full of change, and so are the relationships we have. In fact, the one constant in life is change. Whether it's a new season of life, a change in circumstances, or personal growth, change will come. And when it does, it can either bring people closer together or drive them apart. The key is learning how to navigate these changes with grace, wisdom, and faith. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." Every relationship goes through different seasons, some joyful and others challenging. But in each season, God is at work, helping us grow and adapt. Understanding the seasons of relationships. Just like nature goes through seasons, so do our relationships. There will be times of flourishing and times of difficulty, times of closeness and times of distance. Understanding that these changes are part of God's plan can give us peace as we go through them. In 2 Corinthians 4:16-18, Paul writes, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." Life's challenges, including changes in our relationships, can be difficult, but they also serve a purpose, helping us grow stronger, deeper, and more rooted in God's love. Recognizing the different seasons. There are several seasons in relationships, and each one comes with its unique challenges and opportunities. Let's take a closer look at some of these seasons. The honeymoon phase. This is the time when everything feels new and exciting, and the bond feels effortless. It's a beautiful season, but it doesn't last forever. The growth phase. This is when both people begin to grow deeper in the relationship, but it often comes with challenges like conflict or difficult conversations. It's the season where you truly learn about each other. The challenging phase. Every relationship will go through tough times, such as personal hardships, external pressures, or a loss of connection. This season tests the strength of the relationship. The healing phase. After conflict or difficulty, this season brings restoration and peace, but it requires effort, forgiveness, and intentionality to move forward together. The mature phase. This season comes when a relationship has been tested, refined, and strengthened. You learn how to handle challenges together and are united in your purpose, embracing change with faith. While change can feel unsettling, it's important to remember that God is always at work in every season. In times of transition, we may not understand what's happening, but we can trust that God is with us, guiding us through. James 1:5 encourages us, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." If you're navigating a season of change in a relationship, ask God for wisdom. Trust that He will give you the guidance you need to handle the changes with grace. Practical steps to embrace change in relationships. Here are some steps you can take to embrace change in relationships with faith. Pray for wisdom and patience. Ask God to guide you as you navigate the changes, and trust that He is leading you through this season for a reason. Be open to growth. Changes in relationships often bring opportunities for personal and relational growth. Embrace these opportunities, even when they are difficult. Communicate openly and honestly. During times of change, it's vital to talk about your feelings, expectations, and concerns. Communication helps build understanding and create space for empathy. Trust the process. Trust that God is using this season to refine you and the relationship. Even in tough times, He's at work, teaching you both valuable lessons. Celebrate the small victories. Change can be hard, but celebrate the moments of progress and healing. Every step forward is a step closer to stronger, more resilient relationships. Navigating difficult seasons together. Some of the hardest seasons in relationships are those marked by conflict, distance, or change that neither person anticipated. Whether it's a time of personal struggle, a period of disagreement, or a life transition like moving or career changes, these moments can test the foundation of the relationship. But in these times, it's crucial to lean into God's promises. Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." When we face difficulties together, we can draw on God's strength to keep going. Practical steps for navigating difficult seasons together. Here's how you can handle difficult seasons with strength and unity. Support each other emotionally. In tough times, provide emotional support for each other. Be a safe space where you can both express your feelings without judgment. Remain committed. Make the conscious choice to remain committed to the relationship, even when things get hard. This commitment creates a solid foundation to weather any storm. Revisit your shared values. During challenging times, it can be helpful to return to your shared values and vision for the relationship. This reminds you both of why you're in this together. Seek counseling if needed. If you're struggling to navigate a difficult season, don't hesitate to seek help from a trusted counselor or pastor. Sometimes outside guidance is needed to help you work through the challenges. Growth and renewal through change. While change can be difficult, it often brings opportunities for growth and renewal. God is in the business of transforming lives, and He can use change to refine you and strengthen your relationships. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Even in the midst of challenging seasons, God can bring about good. He can turn your struggles into a testimony of His faithfulness and love. Practical ways to embrace renewal and growth. Here are a few ways to embrace growth and renewal during times of change. Reflect on what you've learned. Take time to look back on the challenges you faced in the relationship. What lessons have you learned? What strengths have you discovered? Forgive and let go of any past hurts or disappointments that may be holding you back. Forgiveness is essential for renewal and healing. Grow spiritually together. Use this season to grow spiritually together. Spend time praying, studying the Bible, and encouraging each other in your faith journeys. Set new relationship goals for the future. These can be practical goals, like improving communication, or spiritual goals, like serving together more. Setting goals gives you both something to work towards. A season of renewal. I want to share the story of Sarah and Jake. They had been married for several years, and things were going well until Sarah got a job offer in another city. The move was unexpected and stressful, and it created a lot of tension in their relationship. They struggled to adapt to the new environment, and the distance from family and friends weighed heavily on both of them. But through it all, they leaned into God and each other. They prayed together for guidance and strength, and slowly but surely, they began to find their rhythm in the new city. They found a church family, made new friends, and discovered new hobbies they could enjoy together. Today, Sarah and Jake look back at that season as one of growth and renewal. It was a time of challenge, yes, but it also became a time of deepening their bond and strengthening their faith. They learned that change, even difficult change, can be an opportunity to grow closer to God and to each other. Friend, change is inevitable, but with God's help, we can navigate it with strength, grace, and faith. If you're going through a season of change in your relationship, remember that God is with you. He will never leave you, and He is working behind the scenes to bring about good, even when you can't see it. Take this time to reflect, grow, and trust in God's perfect plan for you and your relationships. Building a community of support for your relationships. Relationships thrive in an environment where they are nurtured and supported, not just by the people in the relationship itself, but also by a wider circle of friends, family, and mentors. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Building a community of support for your relationships is essential for growth, encouragement, and lasting impact. The power of a strong support system. God never intended for us to walk through life alone, and this includes our relationships. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a family dynamic, or close friendships, we are called to lean on one another. A strong support system provides not only practical help, but also spiritual and emotional encouragement. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, it says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up." This is so true in relationships. Having a community around you, whether you're facing challenges or celebrating successes, makes all the difference. The types of support you need. There are different types of support that can enrich your relationships, and each type plays an essential role in keeping things balanced. Let's take a closer look at some of these key types of support. Emotional support. This is the kind of support that makes you feel heard, understood, and cared for. It's about people being there for you during tough times, offering a listening ear and encouraging you. Spiritual support. The most important support system is spiritual. Surrounding yourself with people who share your faith, pray with you, and encourage you to grow in your relationship with God can strengthen your bond with others and keep your relationship grounded. Practical support. Sometimes we need a helping hand with things like childcare, finances, or other practical matters. Having a supportive community to step in during these times can provide much-needed relief. Wisdom and guidance. Sometimes we need others to offer advice, especially during challenging seasons. A trusted friend or mentor who can offer godly wisdom can help you make decisions that are in alignment with God's will for your relationship. How to build your circle of support. Building a community of support starts with being intentional about who you surround yourself with. God calls us to build relationships that reflect His love, grace, and truth. So it's important to seek out individuals who can encourage you to become a better version of yourself and who can support your relationship in healthy ways. Proverbs 13:20 tells us, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." Who you choose to allow into your circle has a significant impact on the strength of your relationships. Steps to building a healthy support system. Here are practical steps to build a healthy support system around your relationships. Choose people who share your values. Surround yourself with people who value what you value: faith, integrity, and love. These shared values will help reinforce your relationship's foundation. Invest in deep, meaningful friendships. Relationships take time and intentional effort. Spend time nurturing friendships that can offer true support rather than just surface-level acquaintances. Be vulnerable with trusted people. Vulnerability is key to building deep, supportive relationships. Be open about your struggles, challenges, and joys. The more real you are with others, the deeper the connection becomes. Engage in group activities with like-minded individuals. Join a church group, Bible study, or a small group of friends who can support your relationship and encourage your growth. It's essential to create spaces where you can be supported and where you can offer support to others. Seek mentorship. Find older, wiser individuals who have walked through the kinds of challenges you're facing. Their wisdom can offer you valuable insights and guidance for your relationships. Serve others together. A strong support system is not only about receiving help, it's about giving help as well. Serve others together, and you will build bonds of friendship and encouragement that strengthen your relationships. Effective communication in relationships. Welcome back, friends. We've been journeying together through the wonderful, sometimes challenging world of relationships. So far, we've explored how to build a strong community of support. But today, we're going to talk about one of the most important aspects of any relationship: communication. You've heard it before, communication is key. But why is it so crucial? And how can we communicate in ways that honor God and strengthen our relationships? Let's take a closer look. The power of words in relationships. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death. and those who love it will eat its fruit. This is such a profound verse, reminding us that our words carry weight. Whether we're speaking to our spouse, a friend, or even a stranger, the words we choose can either build up or tear down. In our relationships, our words have the power to foster trust, encourage growth, and show love. Or, if we're not careful, they can also cause misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and division. As Christians, we are called to use our words to uplift others, just as God's word uplifts us. The impact of positive communication. Positive communication builds the foundation for strong, healthy relationships. It involves speaking with kindness, being intentional about understanding, and listening with empathy. Positive communication is not just about saying nice things. It's about ensuring our words bring peace and understanding. Building trust, open, honest communication helps create a sense of safety and trust in a relationship. When both parties feel heard and understood, they are more likely to feel secure in the relationship. Fostering growth. When we communicate positively, we encourage each other to grow. A simple compliment, affirmation, or word of encouragement can inspire the other person to continue to grow and develop into the person God has called them to be. Strengthening bonds. Through healthy communication, we build deeper emotional bonds. It's the foundation of intimacy and connection in romantic relationships and close friendships. Active listening, the heart of good communication. One of the most powerful skills in communication is the ability to listen. We often think of communication as talking, but truly effective communication involves just as much listening as speaking. James 1:19 tells us, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Listening is an art, and it's one that can greatly improve our relationships. It's not just about hearing words, it's about understanding the heart behind the words. Keys to active listening. Here are a few key principles for active listening that can transform your communication in relationships. Give your full attention. It's easy to get distracted in today's world, but when someone is speaking to you, give them your undivided attention. Put down your phone, turn off the TV, and focus entirely on what they're saying. Be present emotionally. Active listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about connecting emotionally. Try to understand the emotions behind the words. Are they frustrated, happy, confused? When you understand their feelings, it's easier to respond with empathy. Ask clarifying questions. If you don't understand something, ask questions. This shows the other person that you care about what they're saying and want to fully understand their perspective. Validate their feelings. Sometimes, all someone needs is for their feelings to be acknowledged. You don't have to agree with everything, but simply validating their feelings shows you respect their experience. Navigating difficult conversations. While good communication is vital, there are times when we need to have difficult conversations that may involve conflict or feelings of hurt. This is where the real test of communication comes in. But even in these tough moments, we can honor God with the way we speak and listen. Steps for navigating difficult conversations. Here's how you can navigate difficult conversations in a way that promotes understanding and reconciliation. Pray before speaking. Before entering a difficult conversation, take a moment to pray. Ask God for wisdom, patience, and the right words. This can help center your heart and prepare you to approach the conversation with grace. Stay calm and composed. It's easy to let emotions take over, especially when we're hurt or frustrated. But we are called to be slow to anger. Try to keep your emotions in check and respond with calmness and patience. Speak with respect and humility. In any difficult conversation, avoid using disrespectful language, insults, or blame. Instead, speak with humility and kindness, even when addressing sensitive issues. Remember that we are called to love one another as Christ loved us. Own your part. When conflicts arise, it's important to take responsibility for our actions. Don't shift the blame entirely onto the other person. Own your mistakes and acknowledge how your words or actions may have contributed to the issue. Seek resolution, not victory. The goal of any difficult conversation should be resolution and understanding, not winning the argument. Approach the conversation with a desire for reconciliation and peace. The role of non-verbal communication. While words are incredibly powerful, it's important to remember that communication goes beyond just what we say. Non-verbal communication, our body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions, speaks volumes. Proverbs 4:24 reminds us, "Put away perversity from your mouth. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips." This not only refers to the words we speak, but also to the attitudes and emotions we express through our body language and tone. How to use non-verbal cues effectively. Here are some tips for using non-verbal communication in ways that enhance your relationships. Maintain eye contact. Eye contact conveys attentiveness and sincerity. It shows the other person that you're engaged and interested in the conversation. Mind your body language. Your posture and gestures can reveal a lot about your emotions. Try to be aware of how your body language might be interpreted and adjust it to show openness and understanding. Be mindful of your tone. The tone of your voice can dramatically change the message you're sending. A calm, kind tone invites conversation, while a harsh or defensive tone can shut it down. Be aware of how you speak as much as what you speak. Be aware of timing. Timing is crucial in communication. If your partner or friend is upset or overwhelmed, it may not be the right time to have a serious conversation. Be mindful of when to approach sensitive topics. Nurturing emotional intimacy. What is emotional intimacy? So what is emotional intimacy? Emotional intimacy is the feeling of closeness, understanding, and connection that allows you to be your true self with someone else. It's not just about sharing surface-level thoughts or having fun together. It's about being vulnerable, sharing your deepest feelings, and truly understanding each other. Emotional intimacy allows you to share your fears, hopes, desires, and struggles without the fear of being judged or rejected. It's the kind of connection where you feel safe to express your authentic self, knowing that the other person will listen with empathy and understanding. Why emotional intimacy is important. Emotional intimacy is what makes a relationship truly meaningful. Without it, even the most fulfilling relationships can feel shallow and disconnected. Think about it. When we open up to someone and they respond with empathy and understanding, it deepens our connection and makes us feel valued and loved. When emotional intimacy is present, there's a sense of belonging and acceptance. It's a bond that transcends mere physical attraction or shared interests. This kind of intimacy creates a strong foundation for lasting relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, a close friend, or a family member. How to build emotional intimacy. Now that we know what emotional intimacy is and why it's so important, let's explore some practical ways to build and nurture it in our relationships. Share vulnerably. Emotional intimacy begins with vulnerability. This means allowing yourself to open up about your true feelings, fears, and dreams. It's not always easy to be vulnerable, but it's essential for creating a deep emotional connection. Share your thoughts and feelings with the other person and encourage them to do the same. Vulnerability creates a space where both people feel seen and understood. Practice active listening. Another key to nurturing emotional intimacy is being an active listener. Active listening involves fully engaging with the other person when they speak, without interrupting or thinking about what you're going to say next. It's about making the other person feel heard and valued. When you listen with empathy, you show that you care about their thoughts and feelings, which fosters emotional connection. Chat. Spending quality time together is crucial for building emotional intimacy. It's not just about being physically present, it's about being emotionally present. When you spend time with someone, put away distractions and focus on the moment. Share meaningful conversations. Engage in activities that allow you to bond and make an effort to create memories together. Be empathetic. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and offering comfort, support, and understanding. When someone feels emotionally seen and understood, they're more likely to open up and deepen the emotional connection. Show empathy by listening without judgment, offering encouragement, and being present for them in times of need. 5. Be honest and transparent. Honesty is the foundation of emotional intimacy. When you're transparent and open with someone, it builds trust and allows the relationship to grow. It's important to be honest about your feelings, even if it feels uncomfortable. If something is bothering you, or if you're feeling disconnected, speak up. Honest communication fosters emotional closeness and shows that you value the relationship enough to be open with each other. 6. Support each other's growth. Emotional intimacy is also about supporting each other's personal growth. Whether it's career aspirations, personal challenges, or dreams for the future, it's important to encourage each other to grow. When both people in the relationship feel supported in their individual journeys, it strengthens the emotional bond between them. Celebrate each other's successes, comfort each other during setbacks, and encourage each other to become the best versions of yourselves. Show appreciation and gratitude. Appreciation is a powerful way to nurture emotional intimacy. When you express gratitude for the other person, whether for their kindness, support, or presence, it reinforces the emotional connection. A simple thank you or acknowledging how much they mean to you can go a long way in deepening the bond. Appreciation shows that you value them, and it makes them feel emotionally validated. Barriers to emotional intimacy. While emotional intimacy is essential for meaningful relationships, there are often barriers that can prevent us from connecting on a deeper level. Let's look at some common obstacles and how to overcome them. Fear of rejection. Many people fear that if they open up too much, they'll be rejected or judged. This fear can prevent us from being vulnerable and sharing our true selves. Overcoming this fear requires trust. Trust in the relationship and trust that the other person will accept us for who we truly are. Remember, emotional intimacy is built on mutual vulnerability, and the risk of rejection is a part of that process. 2. Emotional guardedness. Some people keep their emotions guarded because they've been hurt in the past. While this is understandable, it can create distance in relationships. Emotional guardedness makes it difficult to connect on a deeper level. To overcome this, it's important to take small steps toward vulnerability. Share your thoughts and feelings in a safe, supportive environment and gradually allow yourself to open up. 3. Lack of communication. Poor communication is one of the biggest barriers to emotional intimacy. If we're not communicating our needs, desires, or feelings, it's hard for the other person to understand us. Open, honest communication is key to building emotional closeness. Don't assume the other person knows what you're thinking. Speak up and share your emotions clearly. 4. Emotional unavailability. Emotional unavailability can also prevent emotional intimacy. This can happen when one or both people in the relationship are emotionally distant or unwilling to engage on a deeper level. It's important to recognize this barrier and work together to create an environment where both people feel safe to open up and be vulnerable. Emotional intimacy and faith. As we build emotional intimacy in our relationships, it's important to remember the role of our faith in the process. God designed us for connection, first with Him and then with others. In Psalm 34:18, the Bible says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." God understands our deepest emotions, and He longs for us to experience emotional intimacy with Him as well as with others. Through prayer and seeking God's guidance, we can learn how to foster deeper emotional connections. God's love for us is the ultimate example of emotional intimacy, unconditional, unwavering, and ever-present. When we allow His love to fill us, we're better able to love and connect with others in meaningful ways. The power of emotional intimacy. Let me share a story about two people, Sarah and Jason. They had been married for several years, but had begun to feel emotionally distant from each other. They realized that their busy lives and lack of quality communication had created a gap between them. One day, Sarah decided to open up about her fears of not being truly seen by Jason. She was nervous, but Jason responded with empathy and understanding. This led to a heart-to-heart conversation where both of them shared their emotional needs and concerns. Over time, they made an effort to spend more quality time together, practice active listening, and be more vulnerable. Their emotional intimacy grew, and their relationship became deeper and more fulfilling. I encourage you to reflect on your own relationships. How can you nurture emotional intimacy with the people you love? Remember, emotional intimacy takes time and effort, but it's one of the most rewarding aspects of any relationship. Building a life of healthy and meaningful relationships. Over the course of this journey, we've explored the principles and practices needed to build healthy, meaningful relationships. From cultivating self-awareness and setting boundaries, to practicing effective communication, forgiveness, and self-love. At the heart of it all is one fundamental truth. Meaningful relationships begin with love, God's love for us, our love for Him, and the love we extend to ourselves and others. Relationships are the threads that weave the fabric of our lives, and when they are nurtured with care, respect, and intentionality, they bring richness and fulfillment that words can hardly describe. As we conclude, let's reflect on some of the most important lessons we've learned together. Trust God first. He is the ultimate source of wisdom and love for all our relationships. When you rely on Him, He will guide you to the right connections and strengthen the ones that matter. Know your worth. Your value isn't determined by others, but by the fact that you are a unique creation of God. When you embrace your worth, you attract relationships that honor and respect you. Set healthy boundaries, protect your peace, and create space for mutual respect in your relationships. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to healthier connections. Love yourself well. Self-love isn't selfish, it's necessary. When you care for yourself, you can give your best to others without running empty. Communicate with compassion. Words have the power to build or destroy. Choose them wisely, and let your communication reflect understanding, empathy, and love. Forgive and release. Let go of past hurts and choose forgiveness, not for them, but for your own freedom and peace. Relationships are a journey, not a destination. You won't always get it right, and that's okay. What matters is that you stay open to learning, growing, and loving with intention. Let God's love be your guide, and trust that He will bring the right people into your life at the right time. Remember, you were created for connection. You were made to love and be loved. So step forward with courage, grace, and the confidence that comes from knowing who you are in Christ. Pursue relationships that uplift and inspire you, and don't settle for anything less than God's best for your life. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I pray these lessons empower you to build the life and relationships you've always dreamed of. Relationships filled with purpose, joy, and love. Now go out and be the blessing you were meant to be. If this series touched your heart, share it with someone who needs encouragement in their relationships.